We have a special guest with us today, author Heidi Gray McGill. How are you doing?
Fine, Marcy. Thank you so much, and I genuinely appreciate you having me on WNZR.
Well, let's find out more about you. Where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Ohio. I lived there for 8 years. My mom and dad were pastors in the Nazarene Church, and so I've also lived in Michigan, Maine, and North Carolina.
Okay, and where are you located now?
I'm currently in Fort Mill, South Carolina, which is just about 15 miles below the border of Charlotte, North Carolina.
And tell us a little bit more about you and your beautiful family.
Oh, well, this December, I celebrate 31 years of marriage to my husband, who is in IT. He uses that job to fund his hobbies of scuba diving and flying. He's a veteran and obviously just still needs to have some adventures, I guess. We have 2 adult girls. One is married with 2 preschool-aged boys who are truly the joy of my life, Marcy. I just can't imagine life without them. The other is single and loving single life on her own.
Wonderful. Now, I found out about you that you were a former student of Mount Vernon Nazarene College at the time. So let's go back. Tell us what brought you to Mount Vernon as a student and when that was.
All right. I graduated high school in 1984, which tells my age. And I knew Mount Vernon was for me. Even though I have lived on ENC school districts and Trevecca districts, I knew Mount Vernon was my university. My sister, Davetta, Grace Sabine, she graduated in 92, and she was actually part of a recruitment trio before it even opened in 68. My brother, Scott, he and his wife, Cindy Skidmore, they have been active at Mount Vernon. They met there, and I have 4 nieces that have graduated from Mount Vernon. But I knew that it was the place for me, and it truly was.
We're talking today with author Heidi Gray McGill. Now, Heidi, when did you know that you wanted to be an author?
Oh, Marcy, this is such a unique question for me because writing became really a necessity. It was not that I was one who enjoyed writing in journals all my life. In fact, if you asked Professor Stan Galloway if he had seen potential in me from what I produced in college, he would probably struggle to find constructive words to say. I was not the best writer, and so I actually have a reason of why I started writing. So I was the founder and director of an English as a Second Language program. That was my platform to share Jesus. I did it as a ministry, and that platform closed when COVID hit. So I needed a new way to share Christ with struggling women. I am not a public speaker. My grammar is atrocious, and I am the queen of using the wrong word. But the beauty of writing is that writing can easily be edited.
Yes.
So the truth is, Marcy, I didn't even know I could write. I did this out of obedience, and God has blessed it.
Wow. Can you share with us the experience of writing that first book?
So when I decided that I needed to find a new platform, I know that you should write what you know. And I started with a Christian historical fiction because I am an avid reader of that genre. So I wrote about an orphan's journey to the West in 1868. And that book, Desire of My Heart, it just took me over a year, and I was super excited to share that first draft with my family, but not with the world. And so I had my sisters for a captive audience for 8 hours in a van. We went on a family vacation together, and they were super honest with me, and they let me know that I had a good story, but they also loved me enough to say, you cannot publish that in this current format. So my sister, Davetta, walked alongside me, and she helped me. Over the next 9 months, I devoured every writing craft book I could get my hands on, and I reworked that novel, and I published it in November of 2020.
We are talking today with author Heidi Gray McGill, and your latest book is called Dial P for Perfect. It's part of a series of books called You Are on the Air. So tell us more about this series and how you got involved.
Absolutely. Thank you. So being an independently published author means that I am responsible not only for getting my book onto whatever platform I choose to sell it on, such as Amazon, but I am also responsible for marketing my book. And so there is a collaboration of other independent authors that know we need to broaden our reach from those who are currently reading our books. So I was asked to collaborate with 14 other authors, and we work together by sharing our reader base. And the You Are on the Air series, each novel, there are 26, one for each letter of the alphabet. They are standalone novellas, and so a shortened novel. And the connection is that they each have to do with a radio station, and they must be clean, and they must uphold Christian values. Mm-hmm. So I felt like this was a great first opportunity for me to debut in a contemporary writing setting, and I have truly enjoyed it.
We are talking today with author Heidi Gray McGill, and your latest book is called Dial P for Perfect. It's part of a series of books called You Are on the Air. So there's something very unique, Heidi, about your book, Dial P for Perfect. It is set in our hometown of Mount Vernon. What prompted your decision to set the story here?
That's actually a great question. That's twofold. One is that I have been told that I need to write what I know, which is challenging because, Marcy, I don't know much. I'm a feel person. I understand emotions better than I remember dates or locations or names. So Dial P for Perfect deals with a very sensitive topic, and that is being a curvy girl and accepting yourself for the way God sees you. Being myself, a curvy girl in a world of faceless book and Insta-gorgeous, is tough. Our perception is easily skewed because it looks like everyone else is thin or has perfect children or travels the world, but that is not my life. I am flawed, and so I set my book in Mount Vernon for a very specific reason. What a better place to be vulnerable, to share my heart, than where I felt the safest as an awkward stage of my life. People in Mount Vernon invested in me, and I really didn't realize it until I had left Mount Vernon. But people like Juanita Ferguson, she was my surrogate mother. And I don't know that I'll know all that she did to help me until I reach heaven. I felt like somebody at Mount Vernon. I mean, for Pete's sake, Dr. Prince knew my name. That just made me feel wonderful. Dorm mothers like Mrs. McCall, the RAs, the cafeteria workers, the postmistress, all those people made me feel safe. And those connections allowed me to believe that I am who God says I am and not my skewed perception of who I think I am. In my first book, the first contemporary book that I wrote, Dial E for Endearment, I created a fictitious radio station in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. And the heroine, Everly, who is blind, graduated from Mount Vernon. I didn't know any other school that had a communications program, and I thought, why not promote something that I love and that I am confident is a good, feel-good program? And so when I was asked to write a second book, I chose to focus on Everly's college roommate, Ginger, and I had just happened to place her in Mount Vernon. So Mount Vernon, the setting for my book came just because truly of my knowledge and my experience at Mount Vernon.
We're talking today with a special guest, author Heidi Gray McGill. She has written a book, Dial P for Perfect, which I absolutely adore. I adore this story. And Heidi, you were able to visit town and the campus of Mount Vernon Nazarene University back in June. Can you tell us how this visit helped your writing process?
Absolutely. So I had not been back to Mount Vernon since I graduated. Being on campus truly just rekindled my love for the sense of community that we had when I was there. The buildings may have changed, but the atmosphere of acceptance is still the same. It was palpable. It was just truly, I knew this is my home. So I visited Mount Vernon this summer, like you said, with my dearest friend and college suite mate, Stephanie Brinkloop. And from the moment that we drove into the entrance, it was like we had come home. Marcy, there is something special about Mount Vernon that cannot be explained until you are standing on the campus. Stephanie served as my travel agent, my chauffeur, my seeing eye person, and my guardian of my time. She was the biggest blessing to me. So she coordinated, and we stayed with John and Janice Nielsen, and they fed us. And what that did was it gave me the freedom to knock out about a quarter of that story before I even left at week's end. That story flowed because it was just almost as if I was writing a letter to myself.
We are talking today with author Heidi Gray McGill, and your latest book is called Dial P for Perfect. It's part of a series of books called You Are on the Air. Well, let's talk about the story. Your main character is Ginger, who you mentioned. Can you tell us about her and the message that you want to share with your readers?
Absolutely. So Ginger is the voice talent for a radio promotional spots for multiple stations, and those stations include WNZR. She has this great voice. It's smooth, it's feminine, and that really makes her an intrigue to those who are listening. But like a book, you cannot judge one by its cover. You cannot always visualize the body that goes behind the voice on the radio. And Ginger struggles with that connection of who people perceive her to be. So one way to describe her as a character is she's super snarky. And like many of us, whether we are curvy or not, she struggles with low self-esteem. It's very evident that she is truly struggling with who she believes she is. She is self-deprecating, and she constantly jokes about her size. This is important because I honestly, in my heart, battled this discussion with God, and I believe that this is displeasing to my Lord. He is not pleased when I just really talk wrong about the creation that He has made. So where we might see our flaws, God sees an intricately, thoughtfully designed creation. And so who am I to second guess that?
There are a lot of women, Heidi, that I feel will benefit from reading this story of Ginger because they're walking that path and looking in the mirror and questioning their value because they're not seeing what they would see in a magazine or seeing what they would see on a social media site. So I feel like you've touched a very important topic that a lot of women deal with.
Marcy, I have to agree that honestly, for me, this was a curvy girl story, but someone pointed out to me that this is not just about large women. I think we all of us need to learn to see ourselves as God sees us. I might understand feelings of perceiving that I'm overweight, but I also have feelings of doubt and self-worth. I mean, who am I that I think I can write? I wasn't an English major. I have no special talents or giftedness in that area, and there are lots of reasons why I might not succeed, but if I am measuring my success by God's standards and I'm a faithful servant, I can hold my head high. And I think we forget that each of us are created uniquely differently. And God desires for us to be the best of who we are.
We're talking with author Heidi Gray McGill today, and we're talking about her book, Dial P for Perfect. So give us the specifics. When will the book be published, and where can we find it?
All right. So Dial P for Perfect released on September the 7th, and it's on Amazon. It's available for 99 cents until September 14th and goes up to the standard novella price of $2.99 in ebook format. It is on Kindle Unlimited, as are all of my books, if you're a subscriber to Kindle Unlimited. And the paperback for this book will be $9.99. So Amazon is the best way to locate the books.
Okay. So what is next for you, Heidi? Is there another book on the horizon?
Oh, Marcy, I'm super excited about this because this is my first time to announce that I have signed a 3-year, 3-book contract with Celebrate Lit Publishing, so I will now be traditionally published. This is in another multi-author series called The Swameli Islands, and my books will center around the island scuba shop, and I'm super excited. The first book will come out in December of 2023. So in the meantime, I'm finishing up a Christian historical proxy bride romance story. That one comes out this December. And then the 4th book in my Discerning God's Best series, it's outlined and it's ready to begin as soon as I have time to squeeze that one in.
Wow. So what does a day look like for you, Heidi? Do you have designated writing times?
That's actually a great question, and I am so not like many other authors. Many authors get up and they use all their great morning time for creativity. I am not a morning person, so I get up, I have my devotions, I get my mind set for my day, and then I tackle my administrative things. Those things include checking on any ads that I might have, answering Facebook, email, Instagram, connecting with readers. Anything that would take my time and just be a time sucker or just make me think, oh, goodness, if I don't complete this, I'm going to forget to do it. If I tackle those in the morning and knock them off my list, then by noon, I'm ready to start being creative. And so at noon, I'm usually doing things such as preparing for written interviews, writing a blog post, those types of things. And then my afternoons and evenings, that's when my brain kicks in, and I will spend those hours writing my story. I'm about 1,500 words a day as my average. I've had a couple really good 3,000-word days, but and I've had some days where I've written 23 words. But I've learned that it is a journey, and it is truly a marathon, not a sprint.
We're talking today with author Heidi Gray McGill. I just feel like I need to ask you this question. What is your advice for those listening who may be right at that point in their life where God is opening doors? Maybe it's to be a writer. Maybe it's to do something else creatively. Because you said you didn't anticipate this path. What would your advice be to them?
All right, Marcy, that is a very difficult question, but I'll do my best. I don't necessarily hear God's voice. I do get an overwhelming feeling that God is prompting me to do something. And the only way that I know that that is true is when I spend time with God and something consistently comes in front of me. I feel a nudging towards something, and then there is usually an outward pull. I recognize that I am not gifted in this area. This has been a challenge for me. If you were to read my first drafts, you would say, wow, that's pretty good for a high school ninth grader. But I am just not there. So the beauty of doing what God says and tells you to do when you know in the deepest part of your heart that you need to make an effort to do that, when you walk forward in obedience, there is nothing that can deter you if you remind yourself of your purpose. So if my purpose, Marcy, for writing was to make money, I would have quit a long time ago. This is not a money-making business for the majority of people. This is a difficult walk for anyone who is starting their own business, any entrepreneur. There are so many highs and lows. The negativity that comes from outside can be crushing. But because my purpose is to share Jesus Christ, I don't have to do it perfectly. I just have to do it.
Yeah.
And so when I know my purpose, then it is easier to take on those naysayers and the negativity and the person who gives you a bad review. It's easier for you to just say, you know what, I've done my best and I'm going to keep walking this direction and the path that I believe God would have me take until I no longer feel God saying that that is what I should do.
We're talking today with author Heidi Gray McGill. Heidi, how can we stay connected to you and your writing?
That is such a hard thing because I don't have a lot of bells and whistles because I'm not this massive published author. But you can find me through any online search by my name, Heidi Gray McGill.
Mm-hmm.
And the best, you could also actually search for Discerning God's Best. My series will come up. The Amazon is probably the easiest place to find me, and it will direct you to other places. But for those individuals who are avid readers, I am on Facebook, Goodreads, and BookBub, and those are all under Heidi Gray McGill. And then you can find me on Instagram at Choosing Joy Novels. Each of those places will have my website link, and why I mention that is because when you sign up for my newsletter, which is by far the best way to connect with me because it is where I get real and truly share my heart, I gift my prequel, Deep in My Heart, from that Discerning God's Best series to those individuals who will sign up for my newsletter.
Okay. Well, Heidi, how can we pray for you and your ministry as an author?
Marcy, there are 3 great ways to pray for me, and thank you for asking this question because this is truly a blessing. I would say the first thing is please pray that I do not back down from my calling to clearly share the gospel of Jesus Christ in my writing. I don't want to just give lip service to God. There are many books out there that are labeled Christian fiction, and you have a passing verse or something small. I really want to conscientiously share Christ without being preachy. And if I do it well, my readers will connect with my characters, and it will be very natural. The second thing is connection. Through COVID, of course, we all experience this, but as an author, I feel like I experience this every day. I spend most of my time alone, and authors are not those kind of people that go out and do fun things together. We like our little quiet spaces, and so I would love to just have some connection with like-minded individual. Mm-hmm. This is a very difficult business, and we need a support system. Anybody needs a support system, but I know that I do, and so that's one of the things I crave. The last thing I think is really a prayer for my readers. I would love to have someone email me to say, what you wrote changed my heart. And those words just truly fill my cup to overflowing. And so praying that readers have open hearts and minds would be wonderful. Marcy, I don't write deep stories, but God's word always holds deep truth. And as long as I can portray that correctly through my words, I believe he'll be glorified.
Well, Heidi, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me and to share this wonderful story, Dial P for Perfect. I devoured this. I took a day off of work, and I know
oh my goodness.
I know you wanted me to read it, and you had a deadline, and I had a deadline to get back with you. Thank you so much for even mentioning WNZR in your story. It was such a neat little blessing and honor for us to be a part of this. But thank you for telling the story that we are made in the image of God, and when God sees us, we are his gift. And when we can open ourselves up to be used by him and allow him to work through the gifts that he has given to us, because that's the story that I was reading with Ginger, was that she's beautifully made, and she is gifted, and God has great purpose for her life and her talents. And so I thank you so much for sharing this story with us, and for getting onto this journey that God has for you. I think he has so many more stories for you to tell and so many more people to bless with those stories. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you. And truly, it was my pleasure to mention Mount Vernon and WNZR. It played a significant role in my growth as a Christian, and I'm very thankful.